Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final ADP chasing show of the season. We have a lot in store today. We're going to be going over the results from the closing line value ADP game, revealing our truth serum takes, and some plans for in-season ADP chasing. Details will be given at the end of the show. Let's do it.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually, back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes. All your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's anti the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man.
Well, fellas, it's been a long season of ADP chasing. I think I was digging through the episodes today. We started this back in February with the leg up editions of ADP chasing. I had to dig through. Been 6-7 months of doing this. It's been great. How are you guys doing now? The season's almost about to start.
Not enough time, man. Not enough time. Honestly, is what I feel like. It's just. I still have a couple DraftKings Millie Makers left to do. I still have one more main event left to do, but also at the same time, it's I also need to figure out week one DFS, we are 48 hours away from a showdown slate that I will risk hundreds of American dollars on. And I haven't even logged in to Sim Labs yet to start working on it. So it's just, Paz, a lot going on at one time.
It is. I'm trying to do more 555s, but I'm also trying to write the walkthrough. So it's a weird, I'm thinking about week one. I'm thinking about the season still. Could use a little more time. If anyone knows how to add more time, I'm interested.
Yeah. And also getting some comments that my audio
I think you fixed
lagging.
it.
Is it okay now?
Fixed it. Yeah, I think you fixed it.
Yeah, full disclosure, today I am streaming off of a hotspot on my phone. Do not have Wi-Fi set up in my new apartment, so we could be in for a wild ride today. The city of Boston, I think, has good coverage for AT&T, but that's an issue we can take up with them if things go south.
I've streamed. I've done it before off my hotspot, not as the host, but I've connected via hotspot before, and it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we're not a show that's known for our production quality. We're more kind of known for.
I'm in a shed right now, so yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm just glad I have a better background than someone on the show. Finally, the blank wall is finally being put to rest. The grandma's china is being put to rest. I have a real adult background going on now, so I'm happy for that. All right, guys, let's dive in. I said in the intro. 3 things we're covering today: the closing line value game, then the truth serum takes, and then we'll talk at the end about our plans for what we're doing in season. We'll start here with the closing line value game. I absolutely hate to show this again. It's just devastating. Paternity Pat just absolutely dominating once again. I actually was close. I won't say absolutely dominating. Pat came in first here. He got an average ADP change of 10%. I got 7%, so I was close. And then, the host will not be named.
Sam, I'm just curious. You asked if we should just, eliminate guys who went to IR with the caveat that it would help you. Would you have won if Davis had signed off on that?
We'll get to that later, Pat. I will be tweeting the results of this show. Okay. So I do want to just focus on Davis.
Hey, can we change the rules so I win or?
Well, it's actually crazy. This is so funny that I would have done this because I would assume if I would have just read my own underdog exposures, considering that all of them absolutely smashed, I would have just won this game. If I would have just taken Chase Brown and Rashee Rice and Rico Dowdle and Xavier Worthy, I would have just won this game. So I guess I need to learn myself. I need to learn Matic to win this game next year.
That's what that was my first takeaway, because it's really been the summer of Davis, just all of his takes, the takes he's been most public about have just smashed closing line value. So I don't know what happened. The pressure of the closing line value game got to you in the heat of the moment, but you really choked here on some of the selections. If you had just stuck with your guys, I think you.
I wonder. I bet I took Kamani Vidal at one point, and he's like a 90% loser. Like I must have had a couple. I maybe took Rondale once, but I'm just trying to think of guys. I'm trying to think of guys I would have taken that I would have lost. Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah, that's a bad one, obviously.
So here are the results. Yeah, you did take Kamani.
Didn't I pick Rashee Rice at some point too?
No. So if someone can go through the tapes and find that, there was a point where I took Rashee Rice. I didn't even take him at his lowest point, and you guys both criticized me for taking him when he was going to fall even further. But I think everyone just forgot to take him again. So
I thought I took him the next week, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, there's possible. Look, I did this by literally going through each episode one by one and then tracking them. Possible I missed a week. I don't think I did though. But yeah, Rashee Rice, that was the biggest victory for me. I mean, again, Pat just took a bunch of cheap wins. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott on the first week after he signed.
These are all good picks.
Come on, man! Like try to help the listeners out. Just don't take the easy.
It was
singles,
Ezekiel Elliott was a pretty solid pick, actually.
Justin Fields was half right. There was like a week where he was like a 14th round pick. I'm looking at this list and I'm like, okay, Vidal, easy loss. Curtis Samuel obviously was a winner, but then injures his toe. So it's pretty obvious to me why I did not do good, why I did not do well at this game. And I took Zeke at the wrong time too.
Yeah, this is funny too. Yeah, I was going to point this out. Zeke is on both ends. That got Zeke as the second best value. Davis got him as the third worst value in this game. So you hate to see it. There are some other funny things. Like at one point, Davis took Curtis Samuel in back-to-back weeks. I think Pat also took like Travis Kelce multiple times. There are a couple weird things where like we were not tracking.
Can you make one of those Rashee Rice? Because I'm sure that's what I meant. That's what I wanted to do.
No. So
here's
now
the deal. Next year, we need to be more locked in on this. It needs to be a wager that all of us are locked in on.
We need to track it as we go to know who.
We did have a wager. Yeah, we had a wager last year, and I tracked it as we go. We messed up this year by not having a wager because it really just slipped through the cracks. But I do want to say,
I mean, if you guys want to put stakes on this thing I won.
I have a couple of rule changes I'd like to propose before we put stakes on that. But the things I want to point out is like I think it's pretty clear I had the best process here. I mean, you look at these three picks. My two worst picks, Elijah Mitchell and Ricky Pearsall. One of them literally got shot. The other went on IR. I mean, we're counting those two against me. I don't think so. And then Samaje Perine, I only got the increase up to 200 ADP because when BBM closed, he was at 200 ADP. If you take his actual increase to like what he's going to be, when the season starts, that pick gets a lot better. So
that's true. You did get robbed on that one.
Yeah,
I don't know that Pearsall really cost you that much because he had already fallen a lot.
He'd already fallen
even before he got shot. It was a bet on Ayuk getting traded, and he didn't get traded. So I think that one's a little. But I'll give you the Perine. Perine, you should get a little bit more. I would say maybe about 2% more. We can give you an extra 2%. You can go to 9.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah. I mean, all I'm saying is if my guy didn't get shot and we had a couple more days for DM, I think it's a lot closer. Any other reflections on this? I mean, I was impressed by Pat. I think like 5 of the top 9 risers here.
I mean, Pat taking Chase Brown. Pat taking Chase Brown is just like that's trademark infringement right there. Like or honestly, maybe I have reached this spot with Chase Brown where it's like I actually have so much exposure to him. I think I've got him on 3 main events. I've got him on 3 big dogs. He was my most drafted running back at BBM. I've now reached the fear stage of being this exposed to a player of like if this dude comes out and fumbles against New England. Like it's just gonna be so brutal for me. Like I kind of just want to quietly reap the benefits. I'm not gonna feel the need to victory lap a strong week 1 Chase performance because I know how fragile that is.
Yeah, you definitely won't victory lap a strong Chase Brown week 1 performance. The Chase Brown crushes, we won't hear from Davis at all.
I put this in Discord. I put this in the ship chasing Discord earlier. The only guy I'm going to victory lap is when Worthy scores a long touchdown against the Ravens. That's it. Everyone else, I'm just along for the ride. I'm here to disseminate information. But Worthy, when Worthy scores a long touchdown,
I don't believe this at all. I can't wait for David to explain. Well, what you don't understand, the reason I did 10 victory laps, actually, what you don't understand.
I was sharing information. It's not a victory lap. I'm just trying to disseminate information to my followers.
Yeah,
nothing to do with victory lapping. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're obviously lying to some degree.
I believe the because I did 2 actually, Davis. I did 2 copyright infringements here. Chase Brown, clear copyright infringement, but also Braylon Allen, an even more egregious brand infringement on you there. But I believe I let you pick first in both of those. I wanted to see if you would take your guy. You didn't.
Someone in the chat made this point earlier, which is that it's kind of hard for me to be in tune with these guys that I was getting massive CLV on because I was just taking them at their new price anyways. Like I was taking Braylon Allen in the 15th round when he was an 18th round pick. So it maybe I was a little bit out of tune with who would be a riser because I was just taking them there anyway. So, but I mean, you started out being agnostic on Braylon Allen. You were when we were doing these shows in February, you were not a believer. So I'm glad that you came around in the end.
I did. I mean, he had a really strong offseason throughout. I mean, even in the early, before training camp, OTAs and stuff, he was getting positive press. And I thought Izzy would get cut. I think in some ways it wasn't as bullish as it could have been, but it was still pretty damn bullish.
Yeah. All right. So that'll do it for this closing line value segment. Yeah, Pat, I will give him credit. He's the repeat 2 times winner of this game. But I mean, Davis and I clearly weren't even trying. There was no stakes. So, I mean.
Oh, you weren't trying? Is that why you gave the whole monologue?
If I was trying, would I picked Greg Dulcich if I was trying? I mean,
a bad effort by me to select Curtis Samuel twice. Just like a really bad effort by me, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, though, like, so not to belabor this point, but all of the losers here are just like guys who got injured. Like, I actually think the Curtis Samuel thing was trending in the right direction for you, Davis, until the toe.
He got up to like wide receiver 44 for a week, and then he hurt his toe.
Yeah, I think the Herbert momentum was stopped by that plantar fascia thing, the Marshawn Lloyd thing. So a lot of these losses, Pearsall Mitchell too, can be chalked up to injury. But anyways, let's.
When did you pick Jaleel? That's a good one.
That was an early one. Let me get the date on that.
That's one of my favorite ones on here.
The Jaleel one, I got him. Sorry, I have this organized terribly. I got him on May 13th at an ADP of 181. So I feel pretty good about that one.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
This is neither here nor there, but I just got an email notification that Ben Gretsch in a Dynasty League that we were in just dropped Kadarius Toney for Mac Hollins. Just imagine telling yourself that sentence at this time last year.
That is brutal. Oh my God.
All right. Let's take some.
So we'll go. Yeah, let's do the truth serum pick. So I'll set this up a little bit. I don't have any more charts to show. Actually, I do have charts for one of my picks, but no more fancy charts for the most part. We're going to go through 3 truth serum takes for each of us. One of them is going to be a player take truth serum. One of them is going to be a team level take truth serum. And the last one is going to be a roster construction level take truth serum. Like, I don't know, elite quarterback is the nuts this year, or 0 RB sucks this year, whatever, something along those lines. So we'll start
something along those lines.
Yeah, no, I would never say that. But let's start here with the player take truth serum. Davis,
now, can I
the floor?
Can we talk a little bit about the truth serum and what we're doing here? Because
maybe.
My take on truth serum, and I guess maybe you guys should. I just want the people to be aware of what I'm coming from, and maybe you guys have a slightly different interpretation. But my thing on truth serum is it's not hot take serum. It's I don't really want to give this take, but you gave me truth serum and asked me for a take, and now I have to serum. So these aren't like necessarily my hottest takes. They're just things I don't really want to say.
I view it the same way. It's a take that I don't really want to say on a podcast, but influence the way that I drafted teams.
Same thing for me. I interpret it as like a take that is not necessarily popular, or you're afraid that if you're wrong about it, you're going to look really stupid. Maybe that's another way to put it. But yeah, it's not just the hottest take. It's something that you actually believe, but maybe you weren't super vocal about or wanted to talk about throughout the season. So that's mostly how I interpreted mine. So we'll start here with the player take, Truth Serum. Davis, I've just injected you with Truth Serum. What do you got?
Mine is that Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably one of the most spectacularly overdrafted players in the history of as long as Best Ball Mania has been happening. And the only reason that anyone drafted him was because they didn't want to be the guy who had no Marvin Harrison Jr. if he smashes in the fantasy football playoffs. The key difference between drafting, for example, Jamar Chase's rookie season, or even compare him to where Neighbors is going or where Adunze is going, is that you are just straight up passing over guys who could score like 300 fantasy points. You're just like Deebo Samuel, no thank you. Devontae Adams, out of here. Nico Collins. How about just going over Nico Collins, who had like 3.3 yards per route run last year, is playing with a guy who's like third in MVP voting, and we're just like, no, we need this rookie wide receiver. I like Marvin Harrison Jr. I think I ended up with a nice, comfy 4% exposure blanket, but I think it is very unique to the type of people who spend a lot of time drafting on Underdog, and I think there's a real chance he kind of ends up with 82 receptions, 980 yards, and like 5 touchdowns, 6, like a good rookie year. A rookie year that 5 years ago we would have been like, this guy is going to take over the NFL, top 5 dynasty asset, but doesn't break fantasy his rookie year.
I agree with that. I was very strongly considering this for my Truth Serum take. I didn't, because I think I've been kind of public about it. I'm with you 100%, Davis. And again, it has nothing to do with hating Marvin Harrison Jr.
Nothing.
as the player or the prospect. I am in full agreement with people that he's one of the top 3 prospects to come out of the last decade, 15 years. No disagreement there. It's just that we see in fantasy, and a lot of people have made this point. I think Gresh has made this point. Others at Rotoviz have made this point, that the year 2 and year 3 performances at wide receiver are generally just much better bets for like the elite receiving production. You do have the examples, obviously, of, Chase rookie year, Puka rookie year, but I think there's just so many like young wide receivers in their prime on awesome offenses that you have to pass up on to take Marvin Harrison, Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, the San Francisco 49ers wide receivers. You're putting so much faith into a guy who's literally never done it on the NFL field. And passing, everyone says like this second, third round for wide receivers is gross, or it's a bad second round. I kind of disagree. I think there's awesome wide receiver talents in that range on awesome offenses.
Flat.
So
it's flat.
It's flat. I agree that it's flat, but I don't think it's like bad. So I'm with you, Davis. I think I have like a 2% Marvin Harrison Jr., but I'm totally with you on this take. Crane, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, to me, the Harrison stuff represents like a departure from best ball, best ball departing from redraft in terms of like what we're doing. I think as a best ball pick in a Best Ball Mania style type tournament, he makes, plenty of sense at the 1-2 turn of the early second, because you are taking a guy who, if he explodes, is like more likely to have that production back weighted than a veteran. So that's, I think, part of it for me is that, you're not going to get you're not betting to score the most points over the course of the season. Yeah. You're betting for the guy who is the hammer in the playoffs. And maybe we've jumped the shark on that, but I understand making that bet with, one of the best wide receiver prospects ever, with a good quarterback situation, potential to dominate targets down the stretch, an offensive coordinator we believe in. So it's definitely Like we're gonna find out, and I wouldn't be surprised if you guys are right that like, nope, 1-2 turn is just too much. We should never take a rookie wide receiver at the 1-2 turn. But I kind of like it. I like that the market never backed off this take. I think we all felt like this would kind of cool off, or like it was like sticker shock from the jump, and it never cooled off. You know,
it never cooled off because everyone is a coward. It never cooled off. It never cooled off because everyone is too afraid to be on the record of being like, well, I don't really like the greatest wide receiver prospect. You know, it's like that is, and it's not like I'm saying anyone who took him is bad. Like I think he's clearly such a great talent, and he
took him. I have 13% Harrison. I think it could work. Like I think it's not like an absolute smash, but because of how, I mean, it's just really difficult to overstate how important the late season scoring is. And so if I'm sacrificing like some early season stuff, but then by the end of the season, I'm getting a guy who we're going to take in the mid first round next year. And I'm getting that player down the stretch. Like it's worth the sacrifice.
Yeah. I do want to push back a little bit. I think we have time to debate these. The late season stuff, Crane, I totally understand that thesis for rookie wide receivers having back-weighted production. But when you're talking about a guy that goes at the 1-2 turn, I think of it like is Marvin Harrison Jr. more likely to have spike weeks down the stretch than Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel? Like I think of the back-weighted thing more so when I'm choosing between, say, Xavier Legette and Demarcus Robinson. I think it's way more likely the rookie is going to have that production versus the veteran. So to me, I always thought that was a little bit of a misappropriation of a thesis, because I'm not sure it applies. We were expecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to be a full-time, like 95% route player, like week 1, right? So that's where I'm like, why is he going to have back-weighted production? I'm just a little bit unsure.
Because over time, you would anticipate that even as a guy who's good enough to start producing right away, that he would, you know, like in the same way that we do see the secondary breakouts in year 2 and year 3 for wide receivers, that maybe he's starting to like really come into his own down the stretch. You know, he is new to the NFL. So in terms of target earning, I think we could see him become a bigger part of the offense in the second half of the season compared to the first, even though he's going to be a big part of the offense right away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, last thing I'll add here is that the Davis point of like nobody wants to be out on the top rookie. I just think that's an interesting dynamic.
I mean, look, the chat is going nuts. They're like, I can't. They're like, they can't believe it. And I'm like, yeah, obviously that's a reason why.
That's why I hasn't said this.
It's why I saved it for September 3rd.
Yeah, but it's just like there's definitely a psychology there of like everyone who's doing best ball is like so in the weeds of like dynasty and prospecting, and it feels so like you want to be the guy that like knows who the next really good player is. To me, I honestly thought that's what was propping up JSN's cost a little bit last year when I thought he was overvalued. It's just like, well, he's the top prospect and I don't want to like have none of the top prospects. So wherever he goes, I'm going to have him. And I'm not saying that's like the whole thing. It's not that simple, but man, look at like Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors redraft ADP in like the Yahoo and ESPN leagues. Like the slappies are in on Marvin Harrison. Like they take him at the 1-2 turn and Malik Neighbors goes in like the 4th and 5th. So maybe that's a secondary point to what I was saying, but there's like, it's not just like the experts that are in on him. Like the very casual people see Marvin Harrison. They're just like, I know the name. I remember in Ohio State. I'm in because I want to be in on Marvin Harrison. And I think we took it too far, but we'll see. I could definitely see Davis and I being wrong on this.
It's very obvious to see how I'm wrong on this. Like it's why it's a truth serum take. It's why I would have never brought this up unless it was, this specific part of the program.
Yeah. All right, Crane, I'll send it to you now for your truth serum player take.
All right, I've got a couple, but I think I'm going to pivot at the last second here, which is somewhat difficult because I don't have all my stats ready. Here's the truth. This is a truth serum take based on the Marvin Harrison one. I'm not sure Trey McBride is really that good.
Oh,
dominated targets.
Oh,
I don't I don't know if he's that good.
Shot in the heart.
Gretchen's turning off the podcast right now. He's throwing his computer at
Listen,
the wall.
this is also true, Serum, because like we've taken McBride. You know, we'll probably take McBride again tonight. You know, we're drafting with Leone. We want to go elite tight end. We'll probably end up with McBride again. But I'm just, you know, this guy, he didn't pass Zach Ertz ever. He never passed him. He didn't pass him as a rookie. And then he didn't pass him as a second-year player until Zach Ertz got hurt. That's when he got in front of him. Then with Rondale Moore, who like immediately lost his job to Ray McLeod, with Michael Wilson, who can't earn targets at all.
Have some respect for the dead, dude.
With Greg Dortch, who wasn't even on the field. This dude dominated targets, but he had a first read target rate of 19%, which is the highest among all tight ends. That's great, unless they added the best wide receiver prospect of a generation. That could be bad for who's getting the first read targets. His open score was like super mediocre. He had a great yards per out run, great targets per out run, all the metrics we like, really good. But is he that good, or did he just happen to soak up targets with no target competition for half a season after the guy he couldn't pass, Zach Ertz, got hurt?
This is one of my deepest fears. I will rebuke this with some statistics. The first one is that Trey McBride at the roughly the same average depth of target to Brock Bowers, who like we are literally falling. Like I'm surprised all of our truth serums weren't actually Brock Bowers is the tight end one, and we should have had 100% exposure to him. He had the same ADOT as Bowers, their final seasons in college. Trey McBride had the number one receiving grade in PFF, 2.78 yards per route run with like giga targets. He had 91 receptions his final season in college. No other tight end his final season had more than 73 targets. He caught 75% of those targets with, again, a pretty healthy ADOT. I'm pretty confident he's good. Where I will meet you in the middle is I will say there's definitely a chance that if you just move him to a 21% target share instead of a 27% target share, that he then basically just becomes Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, it's more like I really do believe in the elite tight ends this year as kind of being the key to the season. I have 8% of McBride in BBM, so I didn't really draft like this. And look, because I'm not sure, okay? I'm not sure if he's good. I'm still willing to draft him. Sharp people really like him. There's certainly upside, especially in on DraftKings and FFPC, where you get more of the PPR goodness. But yeah, it's a very thin resume on a guy who I saw him as an okay prospect, but not someone we were really that excited about. I mean, he was going fairly late in dynasty drafts that year, like kind of Pat Freiermuth-y in terms of his rookie ADP, like not a prospect that we were extremely excited about. He was kind of more of like an interesting guy. And he landed in an amazing situation last year and took full advantage of it.
But that's how tight end,
like you said, what situation
works.
Isn't.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but this situation just got worse for him to gobble up targets.
And I think that I don't fully. I'm taking McBride. I'm not like overly overweight him, so I'm not sure I agree. But I see where you're going with this. I think the other point, like in your favor, Pat, is people forget a little bit like how bad his rookie year was. I remember I had him in some managed leagues, and this is his rookie year. And like the first time he got on the NFL field, he just got absolutely like pancaked and then wasn't on the field again for like 4 weeks. I'm like, I'm cutting him for Josh Kelly. And it turned out that year that was the right decision in redrafting the year. Like
that's a good call.
He was like never, even at the end when he got some run, he was still like pretty useless as a fantasy asset. I don't know the numbers, but I remember
he had 0.84 yards per route run that season. He only ran, he ran 317 routes. That's a lot more than I thought. Yeah.
So it's a question of how, like, what data do you trust? You completely throw out that rookie year data. I probably would put 90% of my weight into the second year data and 10% of my weight into the rookie year data. Like, I don't think that's who he is as a player, but I see where you're coming from with this one a little bit. Not sure I fully agree though.
I think the thing is I think he might end up being right about like, oh, McBride is actually not this explosive kind of like, certainly I don't think of him as like a Gronk Graham style player. But I mean, if Kyler gets to 560 throws because the offense is just really good, it might not matter, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a fair point from Bengals. Who was his quarterback end of the year's rookie year? It was a atrocious quarterback situation after Kyler got hurt. Who was that? Clayton Tune?
Yeah, but this is targets per route run. Targets per route run, you know?
Sometimes the incompetent quarterback is just like taking a sack every play and can't even read. Sometimes that data you do have to throw out. But I agree with you. Like, it's a per route stat that shouldn't be too affected by who the quarterback was. Yeah. Again, how is my Wi-Fi?
It's not great. It's not great. But we're persevering.
All right.
We're persevering.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he makes me nervous is all. He makes me nervous. And there's so many great early tight ends. To the extent that I did actually act on this take, it's that I have 22% Mark Andrews in Best Ball Mania. And so I didn't split that evenly. I bet on Mark Andrews, who I'm convinced is an elite talent still. And I took my 8% of McBride.
Yeah, I've got way more Andrews. Like I'm 100% in alignment there. Like my concern level on Andrews is 0.0. My McBride concern is like, I don't know, 10% or something.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go ahead and give my truth serum take. Against my brand, I'm actually going with take in favor of a player rather than a hater's take.
Stunned.
I'm going with that. I think Julio Jones. I already butchered it. Let me start this over. Producer, edit this. 3, 2, 1. Producer, can you edit this? Nico Collins.
Make a pro case for retired Julio Jones.
Nico
Is
Collins
he on the roster anywhere?
Is the reincarnation of Julio Jones, and it's like people don't even care at all. There have been 3 wide receivers of the last decade to have more than 3 yards per route run in a season. It's Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, and Tyreek Hill. It's like a who's who of the absolute league winners in fantasy football of the past decade at wide receiver. Nico Collins just did it, and people want to hit him with all these excuses like, oh, it only happened because Tank Dell wasn't there. Oh, he was competing for targets with Noah Brown and Robert Woods. I don't care. Over 3 yards per route run in a season is just absolutely insane. And again, we're taking him behind like Drake London, like has done nothing close to this in his NFL career. We're taking him behind a rookie in Marvin Harrison. We're taking him behind, I love Garrett Wilson. Nico Collins might just be a better football player.
He's already done it. Nico's already done it. There's no wish casting. He did it. We watched it happen.
And here's the second part of this take. He's playing with like the reincarnation of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady in terms of a pocket passing quarterback, and CJ Stroud. And people also don't care about that. It's like, oh, that's bet on the guy playing with Aaron Rodgers coming off a torn Achilles, considering running for vice president. Let's take him over the best wide receiver of the guy attached to CJ Stroud. To me, it's just insane to me that he's like not in the consideration set with these other guys. People are taking like Cooper Kupp over him now. I have, I think, 29% Nico Collins last time I checked, which is really high for a second round pick. I almost never.
You know ball.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at my 15% and being like, you fucking suck, dude. You should have 20%. This is such a good take, man. This is such a good take.
Yeah, it's not an anti-Diggs take. It's not an anti-Dell take. I'm taking those guys as well. I'm just like, I want to be all in on these Texans pass catchers. I think one of them is going to be the guy you need in fantasy this year. And I think Nico has the best odds of it. Dude, he's like 6'4", like elite speed. He's like a freak RAS athlete. He's one of these guys that was drafted and people were like, oh, he's kind of a developmental prospect. that kind of to me explains his slower adjustment to the NFL.
He
But
played
I don't
on
think we
these
should,
awful
counting-
Michigan teams who had no quarterbacks.
And awful Texans teams.
Yeah.
Davis Mills was a quarterback the first 2 years of his career. I mean, we can cut him a break for that. Yeah. So to me, I'm all in on Nico this year. I think he's going to be top 2, top 3 fantasy football wide receiver. I think he doesn't get enough credit.
It's honestly cheating of you to take a player who has no haters and to just be like, I think this guy who has no haters is a good pick. That is honestly, I kind of think that's cheating of you.
It was hot enough. It was hot enough that I do think it qualifies as a truth serum take, because you're saying this dude is, the reincarnation of a player who's still alive. the reincarnation of quarterbacks, Hall of Famers. I mean, it's pretty hot. So I don't know. I'm rated 8% overall. I think he's a good pick, but I guess I've had trouble getting excited. Like, I think you're selling me with that level of excitement, because that's what you need, I think, to be taking him at a high rate in the second round, because like you can play it more cheaply through Diggs and Dell. And I do that a lot. I actually have the most Diggs of anyone, which surprises me a little, but like I still think Diggs is good. So, and he ultimately became the cheapest of the 3.
Yeah. Again, yeah, I'm never going to say that either of those guys are bad picks. So I don't have any, I guess, counters to it. I just think that the Texans are I just want to be taking multiple shots at the Texans wide receivers. Let's move on here to team level truth serum takes. Davis, sorry, did I cut you off there with my shitty Wi-Fi?
I did just want to say, it's like, that is just very non-ship chasing of you, Pat, to take the oldest one, to have the most of the oldest one.
It is, yeah.
That's kind of against what we do here, which is, a little bit of a bummer.
I know, but I'm overweight on Dell, and I'm even with Nico, so it's not like I'm fading the other guys in to get more Diggs exactly, but like Diggs to me is just not someone who should be available at the very end of the 3rd round. Like, he was still, his yards per target dropped last year, but he did this with the Bills a couple times where he had like very steady targets per out run, and then his yards per target has been all over the place. Gretch has talked about this too, and like the yards per target could go up significantly in this offense. Like, I think he's getting. I mean, is he even getting like worse quarterback play from like a wide receivers perspective? Yeah, it might be getting better. So I think, I still think Diggs is good. And so it's just like, I don't know. I just thought he belonged to, 3 or 4 picks higher.
Yeah. Here's where I think I'm maybe wrong on the take, is that like from a season long perspective, it just gets too split up between Diggs, Dell, and Nico. And Nico finishes as like the wide receiver 14. But man, I think the spike, like you look at the spike weeks for Dell and Nico last year, and they both just had such massive weeks that even I think in the losing scenarios where Nico is not the clear alpha, it's a pretty even split between those guys. I still think the weekly ceiling for a wide receiver in this offense is going to be insane with CJ Stroud. I do think I am kind of leaning into the vibes of the Texans are going for the MVP season with Stroud this year. They're not messing around with the, 1st and 10 runs to Devin Singletary every time like they did last year. I think they're going to let him cook. So I'm really looking forward to watching the Texans offense. All right. We'll switch up the order here a little bit for the team level true serum takes. Crane, we'll go you first, then me second, Davis third here. What do you got?
All right. So we've got some trendy backdoor stacks this year. The Broncos, I would say, are among the trendiest backdoor stacks. Obviously, I've touted the Patriots all summer. And you got the Panthers, people back in, Deontay Johnson's going to get all these targets, all that, right? You know who's not trendy? The Saints. The Saints is not a trendy backdoor stack, but I think it could be the very best of the non Drake May ones, because I'm still going to say Drake May is the best way to play it. But if we're talking versus the Broncos, I was looking at Russell Wilson's EPA per play last year. It was totally functional. Not that like I believe in Russ, as everyone knows I don't, but like there's actually a fair amount that this offense could fall. I think people kind of assume like, oh, it won't be worse than last year. They're bringing in a rookie quarterback who early in the process, people did not think was going to go in the first round. Kind of went in the first round, I think, because of need. And now we're just kind of assuming like a little bit of a floor here. We couldn't get any run for Marvin Mims or Troy Franklin in the preseason. Those guys, I think, are kind of the guys where we would really get some ceiling out of these stacks. When you look at the Saints, like, it's super concentrated. Like Olave, what if they move Olave around the formation a little bit in this Clint Kubiak offense? What if it's a little bit more modern, a little bit more creative? Rashid Shaheed is the clear number 2 wide receiver. They really don't even have like a number 3 receiver with Thomas gone. Juwan Johnson had foot surgery, but he played in the last preseason game. Jimmy Graham, who sniped 4 touchdowns on 7 targets last year, is gone. So you're getting like, and then frankly, Alvin Kamara is going to get way too much work as a running back. I'm not really taking Kamara. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about kind of playing it through like Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, and Derek Carr as a backdoor, or actually stacking it up with Olave. But it's one of these gross stacks that we never got around to like pretending was cool. And like Bryce Young was horrendous last year, like Zach Wilson level bad. Derek Carr's been totally fine. There's nothing sexy about this, but I think if they, add some of these Shanahan, Kubiak style, offensive tricks to what was really a stale offense last year, then the Saints could, be kind of surprisingly fun.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I've struggled with how to complete the backdoor stacks because the Saints wide receivers after Shaheed are really tricky to me. But I agree with this. When I was looking into the pre-snap motion data for an article I did for ETR this offseason, the Saints really stood out to me as an offense that was just so archaic, so poorly coached last year under I'm blanking on was it Pete Carmichael? Maybe it was the Saints last year.
Yeah, I think it was Carmichael.
Yeah, Carmichael. And then the 49ers always ranked near the top of kind of anything you look at: play action rate, pre-snap motion rate. And you do have to like squint a little bit and just pretend that Clint Kubiak is like Kyle Shanahan's brother or something. That's something you have to make to get all the way there. But I see it. And I think like Derek Carr is thought of as so boring. These other pocket passers like Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, they have been really valuable fantasy assets. And maybe we've just thought of Carr as really bad and boring because of the coaching he's had the past couple of years. I mean, it's been Josh McDaniels on the Raiders and then this disastrous Saints offensive system last year. There's a chance with the Shanahan system that we think of Derek Carr as sort of, more of the fun pocket passer with a ceiling than he has been thought of the past couple of years.
I mean, the
it's
thing
gross.
that makes
I need a truth serum.
So the thing that makes it difficult is doing it with the 18th round guy, because with Knicks, you just do Knicks and Estime or Knicks and Dulcich or Knicks and Mims or Franklin or whatever. It's a little bit harder. I guess you could at the very end.
You get it with Juwan.
Carr and Juwan.
That's better. To me, like we're tacking on, like when you do some of the Broncos stuff, and I like Estime and I like Jaleel. But if I'm doing it as a quarterback stack, I'd rather have a downfield pass catcher than a running back. And like we're guessing with Franklin, we're guessing with Mims. Like these guys might rotate with each other. Like neither one could really do much this year. Like Juwan Johnson is going to play a bunch. He's like pretty good. And he importantly plays tight end. So if you're trying to I've done that a bunch where you take Juwan and then you tack on Carr as a quarterback too. So
my general pushback would be, this is a spot where I just expect chaos to happen in season. Dennis Allen is like minus 150 to be the first coach fired. It's just like it's a team that is just in general disarray. So like I think I buy that, and like that's how the season starts. Like Shaheed and Olave and Juwan Johnson are accounting for like 65% of the team's targets, and then Kamara is taking like another 15%, and it's just all very predictable, and the offense is like fairly good. But I find it hard to map how competitive the team is in the playoff weeks. So it's just I don't. That's more of a vibes based take. Like the idea that like Carr is going to get benched. I don't know if he gets benched, but he does like always get injured. He's always got like a shoulder. He had 2 concussions last year. Not his fault. It's just, yeah.
I think he could
if
get
you're a
like
vibes-based drafter, you're not a Saints guy.
no, 100%. The vibes are terrible. The vibes are truly terrible, which is why I didn't want to have to say this publicly. But Carr, I think, is at risk of getting benched as like he's not getting benched, he's hurt, but he really is getting benched just so they can see what they have in Spencer Rattler. But they can't get out of his contract next year. They're tied to him. So the benching has to be like a little sneaky, which I think he is, if this devolves, like they'll find a way to, see what they have in Rattler. But in like a lot of like mediocre outcomes for the Saints, he plays all the games because they have to start him next year. They can't get rid of him.
Yeah. And
Sure.
I think Dennis Allen is going to be like, he's fighting for his job too. So he's not going to make the switch to Rattler unless that's what the higher ups are saying. Like you have to do it or you'll get fired. But he's not like in experimentation mode at quarterback. He needs to go 9-8 or 8-9 to save his job probably. So yeah, I agree with that. Last question for you, Pat. Have you tacked on any of the Saints wide receiver 3s ever, maybe on DraftKings, like a Cedric Wilson or A.T. Perry? No, you're not messing around with that.
I don't think I've done it once. I think my Saints, because part of the bet for me is that it's concentrated. Yeah, I've taken, so I'm at 13% Juwan, 9% Shaheed, 9% Olave, 7% Carr, which is kind of overweight given that he, it doesn't always get drafted. Kendry Miller at 3%, Alvin Kamara at 2%. I haven't drafted another Saint in any tournament all summer. So this is all on Underdog, but I'm nearly positive I haven't done it on DraftKings either. But yeah, to me, part of the bet is that Shaheed is good, and he and Olave form like a clear wide receiver tandem, and then Juwan is kind of soaking up the rest of the downfield stuff. Obviously, Kamara is going to get his, and it's going to be gross.
Got it. All right, I'll go ahead and give mine. I did want to say before we get into that, this is neither here nor there. McCaffrey, I just did confirm this on Twitter. He's listed as a starter on the week 1 depth chart, the official week 1 depth chart for the Commanders. So as a show, I think we can victory lap that. That seems pretty good. That's not my take, though. My take is I'm going back into hater mode for this one. Nothing fun here. The Colts are just universally massively overvalued, especially the top 3 guys in JT, Richardson, and Pittman. I think all 3 of those guys are close to some of the worst picks on the board where they go at ADP. To me, this is just like, I'm not an Anthony Richardson hater as a prospect. I was very open to him.
You just hate him and talk about it a lot.
You're just like this guy. I watched this guy's gonna get benched for Joe Flacco. I watched him throw a pick in a preseason game. It's Jover. Shane Steichen.
I'm not a hater,
can't
but
commit enough crimes to keep him in the starting lineup. Yeah, we got it.
No. Yeah, I do think I have been pretty quiet about this one. I just think we're chasing this really tiny sample of Anthony Richardson play last year, and also was that play that Anthony Richardson had last year like that conducive for an offensive environment that's going to put up fantasy points? Here's rankings out of 49 quarterbacks who played at least 120 plays. Again, Richardson only small sample, he played like 130 or something. Out of those 49 QBs, Richardson was 45th out of 49 in completion percentage over expected. He was 38th out of 49 in PFF passing grade, slightly better in EPA per play. He was 20th of 49 in EPA per play. But to me, like, I'm just not buying that the Colts offense is going to be this top 10 scoring offense like a lot of people have it projected. And even if it is, I think Anthony Richardson is going to soak up all the value from that and, take a bunch of scrambles and goal line carries. They're going to hurt his pass catchers, hurt Jonathan Taylor a ton at the goal line. I think I have like close to stone 0% of Jonathan Taylor, one of the rare guys in the first 2 rounds that I've close to 0 of. But yeah, man, I feel like we did this a little bit with the Trey. I'm not comparing it to Trey Lance, but we did it a little bit with the Trey Lance thing. Like, I know the film on Richardson looks way better than Lance, but like, are we sure that Anthony Richardson, quarterback, like a top offense in the NFL, I'm just not sure at all. The pieces are priced really expensively. So I've been playing it through Downs, through Adonai Mitchell, later.
But are you taking Richardson and then getting those guys, or are you?
Yeah, I take Richardson when he falls, but I think I only have like 4 or 5% of him. I just think he's like priced pretty close to his ceiling already. Like I get the Kamani code and everything with quarterbacks, but I feel like we're like giving him that bump already. Like we're already assuming he makes that leap into being one of the best rushers in the NFL and like a confident passer. And man, I don't know. I guess
I don't know that we are. If you were to amend this take to JT and Pittman, I mean, I'm on the record about Pittman, but I think the JT side, which I honestly consider doing, because I haven't really drafted like JT's a bad pick, but I've not been. Actually, I have 5%. So I haven't gone like full fade, but I've been kind of quietly nervous about him. And then I just am full fading Pittman because I don't think playing the expensive pieces are the way to do it with Richardson. So I nearly agree with you, but I think Richardson himself is a really good pick, especially now that he's like fallen into the 6th round. Because at that price, I really don't think we are pricing in him being a competent passer plus a Komani code guy. Like that equals to like where Hurts is going. You know, Hurts, that's what Hurts is. So I think there's quite a bit of upside with, you know, from him in the 6th round still. And I think he is live to do that, you know, especially with Shane Steichen, who I think is a really sharp offensive coordinator and head coach. And, you know, so I love playing it through AD Mitchell and Downs stacked with Richardson. But I am fading the other two guys.
Yeah, I mean, Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, it feels like I don't know. I've not met the person who takes them. So that's just kind of like I don't know where the people are that are taking Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman at their cost. I would have gotten on this, Sam. This could have been a good player take one. Is you could have said Kyler Murray's already had an 11-win NFL season and averages like 5.5 points rushing per game in his career healthy games. You could have just gone, Kyler Murray has done nothing to go 25 picks after Anthony Richardson or whatever.
Wasn't that JJ's Truth Serum?
I believe it was. Yeah, I believe it was.
The other angle you can play on that, Davis, is the gap between Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson. If we're taking a guy who we think is going to be a really good fantasy scorer as a rusher, and we have question marks about his passing, like why is Jaden Daniels go 60 picks?
That was my Truth Serum take.
Yep.
For Pete's video, my Truth Serum take was that he should be a 6th round pick, which I don't really want to do.
But he's going to get hurt. He's a 6th round pick, but he's also going to get hurt.
But I'm not really doing that because I'm terrified he's going to get hurt. That's my Truth Serum.
Yeah. I do think we should say like the reason I'll give like the counter argument to my takes. Shane Steichen is way better at this than Cliff Kingsbury is, and I acknowledge that 100%. I'm not trying to ignore that part of it. Also, I do think, again, this wide receiver room in Indianapolis, like you can squint and see real upside with this wide receiver room if AD Mitchell hits and Josh Downs is healthy.
You don't even have to squint. As long as you're not a pencil pusher, you already see it.
Yeah. So I've really been AD Mitchell pilled over the last couple of weeks of the offseason. I'm trying to get him, even standalone, I'm trying to get him as much as I can.
Me too. I think he's a good standalone pick.
Yeah, especially on DraftKings. He's still really cheap there. So, yeah, I do see how this one bites me, but I just think, like, people saw 50 plays of Anthony Richardson last year and are like, all right, that's enough. 5th, 6th round pick. I don't know, man. Like, you can
the thing I quibble with you on is the upside. I think the upside is quite clear that if he is a competent passer with good weapons and a well-designed offense, and he runs like he probably will because he's like Derrick Henry size and incredibly fast and athletic, then he has the upside. Like there's just no question to me. But I do agree that it's, you know, it's kind of similar to my Trey McBride take. Like, are we sure this dude is actually good? It's a thin resume.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that point, like, a bit of a thought experiment, and I did this on JJ's pod, so apologies for people who have to listen to me repeat this, but I do think, like, I don't have like the simulation or numbers to back this up, but like, imagine this theoretical world where CJ Stroud, his ceiling projection for fantasy points is 30 points, and say also Anthony Richardson's is 35. So I'm conceding that Anthony Richardson's ceiling projection is 10 points higher than CJ Stroud, whatever you want it to be. The problem with that is when CJ Stroud hits his ceiling in a given week, assuming that I'm stacking and I'm taking his pass catchers, I'm way more likely to hit a ceiling at wide receiver in my lineup if I have Stroud, Diggs, and Nico than I am if I have Richardson,
not necessarily
Pittman. Well, you don't think that the ceiling of the Texans wide receivers,
but you're
I guess it's all cost adjusted. So I get it.
Like you need a ceiling. Like when you take Nico, if you have Nico and Dell, that's your second and third round pick. If you're winning this tournament in week 17, you're getting like a lot of production out of those guys. The fact that it's then tied to your quarterback is a nice bonus, but like that's a given. Like you're getting, at least from one of those two players, a huge score. Otherwise, you're just not going to put up enough points. Whereas with Richardson, you get Mitchell and Downs. If you get like a pretty nice score out of one of those two guys and out of just one, that's huge. Like that's like a thing that you didn't necessarily like need to happen, but is now like making you way more live for, you're still going to need the massive scores from your early round picks. But I actually think playing it through the two cheap options does give you quite a bit of stacked ceiling with Richardson.
I agree with those points, and I think the fact that Downs and Mitchell are pretty attractive late round bets, that definitely makes the Richardson thing way more attractive to me. The point I'm just trying to make though is that like even in a vacuum, if Richardson projects better than like a pocket passer that goes around him, because of how correlation worked with like a pocket passer scoring and their pass catchers versus how correlation works with Anthony Richardson and his pass catchers, like Richardson can hit his ceiling and he rushed for 3 touchdowns, and then you just have to hit the uncorrelated nuts at your other wide receivers because he didn't bring along any wide receivers. If you hit the nuts on like a CJ Stroud 40-point week, or even like a Brock Purdy 35-point week, right? Like you're going to have really good odds of hitting the nuts with your pass catchers. I just don't think that's true for Richardson, for Hurts, for Lamar. So I think there's a slight element where like the pocket passers in best ball are actually like slightly better in vacuum than the rushers if they project like close to each other, just because of that correlational benefit in the playoff pod weeks. That's the point I'm trying to make though, but you got to factor in the cost of the receivers. Totally agree with you that if you get a good week out of Downs at pick 150 or whatever, that makes up for that, right? So I agree with your point 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, it certainly applies to Pittman. Pittman's prices never made sense to me. I've mixed him in a little bit just as like a humility-based exercise when he falls into the 4th round, but I've drafted 1,170 teams on Underdog, and I have 1% Pittman. He's just not. I mean, like imagine hitting the absolute nuts with Anthony Richardson in week 17, and Pittman has like 12 points. That seems like very realistic to me, And it's like your 3rd round pick. 12 might be high. He could have like 8 points in a Richardson smash game, which that's where I think your point about the correlation really comes into play. Like if you're making me pay for the correlation with Richardson, like I'm thinking twice about that, especially where, with Pittman, I just don't really believe that he's that much more talented than Downs and potentially not AD Mitchell if Mitchell is emerging down the stretch.
Mitchell is the one where if he hits, if Mitchell hits, like he's just better. Like his upside, his 90th percentile is so much better than Pittman, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's like a classic boom bust prospect to me. And I think I was probably wrong. I had a pretty decent fade on him through like May, June, July. And then I watched him in one preseason game and I was like, oh shit, I get this whole AD Mitchell thing. So I don't know, man. He looked really fun in the preseason.
Sometimes you got to put the pencil down, man. I'm not saying always the pencil pushing helps, but every once in a while, you just got to be like, yeah, the pencils are not going to help here.
Yeah. As a Patriots fan, I'm just like so pissed that we took Jalen Polk over AD Mitchell.
No, Polk is a good player. That's fine. You're totally fine there.
I don't know, man. I'm worried about that one. But anyways, it's not important to the show.
I'm worried that you're worried. I have a ton of Polk.
All right. Do you guys want my hater one or my positive one? I've got a hater one and I've got a positive one.
The hater ones seem to get more of a reaction. That's my perspective.
All right. My hater one is that the Cincinnati Bengals are a far more fragile exercise in fantasy football than anyone wants to acknowledge. Burrow had a quote about his hand this week. This is still a problem. Like this injury that Burrow has to his I don't even know what part of his throwing hand or arm it is, but it's like
wrist,
he's
right?
like, oh, his wrist. So I believe the quote was something like, oh yeah, I've got it to a place now to where I can really drive the ball, kind of how I used to. Which I'm like, one, it's September. So it seems like an issue that we're talking about this in game start in 5 days. And Chase has not been at camp. That is weird. Like, it's just T. Higgins is leaving. T. Higgins wanted to be traded and is playing on this franchise tag. Now, obviously, T is massively incentivized to play well so that he can go and get the bag from the New England Patriots. And by the way, how funny is that going to be when T. Higgins is a New England Patriot? Yeah, that is going to happen.
Dude, you're not going to like that, Sam. T. Higgins with Drake May is going to be fun.
I'll always come around. I originally am always reflexively against the Patriots moves, and then I start coping and think they're actually good. Like I'll figure out a way to come around on it somehow.
And I don't want the fact that I am a known Bengals hater to poison this take, because the reason why this is concerning to me should be obvious to everyone, which is that I am the foremost Chase Brown slappy. Chase Brown with Jake Browning is not going to be a guy you want in fantasy. It's going to be really, really bad. It's going to be all Zach Moss if they have to go to the Jake Browning offense. I just feel like getting Burrow at quarterback 8. I'm like, I can make an argument for Jaden Daniels over him. I can make an argument for Caleb Williams over him. Yeah, it's fragile. And I mean, I'm looking back at some of Burrow's crazy, like Burrow's 2021 season. We do the people forget meme a lot. Burrow's 2021 season was gnarly. I mean, he was awesome. He completed 70% of his passes on really high volume, 34 touchdowns. Now, granted, he did also lead the NFL in sacks, which is no one really talks about that with Joe Burrow. That's more of a real football take than a fantasy football take. But basically, I'm just saying we have a quarterback with a legit throwing hand injury that is like every doctor on all these Twitter doctors say this doesn't go away. He can re-injure this. It's a very real thing, and it's like no one even cares.
Yeah, I honestly haven't spent much the offseason.
Exactly. You do this shit and you never think about it.
Yeah, I haven't.
And it's T. Higgins' quarterback. How do we not get here?
I gotta run the numbers. I'll compare Joe Burrow to T. Higgins yards per route run, and I can give you an answer on whether I'm on him or not. Yeah,
this is also true. We have like no data on this because we don't have other quarterbacks with this injury based on like what the Twitter.
It's like a baseball injury, right?
It's a baseball injury.
Well, plus Jamar Chase hasn't signed yet, like today. So
yeah, okay, that's what I wanted. I wanted to talk about that angle too, because I'm starting to do some waiver stuff. Like, isn't Yoshi Voss like
he's a
generational waivers opportunity right now?
And Burton is going to get dropped. Burton is going to get dropped in this run by a lot of people as well. So that's something to keep your feelers out. But yeah, I think Yoshi Voss, FFPC, you can spend 15% or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying he's this year's Puka Nacua. They both played high school football in Hawaii, I think. I don't know. Just connect the dots. I actually don't even know if that's true. I think Puka Nacua is maybe Hawaiian, but is from Utah. I wish I had looked that up before I said it, but they both got Utah connect.
Davis is really rubbing off on you.
Puka is
really rubbing off.
Puka is Samoan, I believe.
Oh shit. Okay. Pacific Island. They both have Pacific Islander connections.
Yeah, that's not tenuous at all.
No, that's a pretty strong connection.
Yeah. I just like I think the it's like if I'll just say this. If this injury happened to Pat, I would want like daily updates on how his wrist was doing. I'd want to know how his rehab was going. I'd want to know how he feels. I would be like, Pat, you can have my arm. Like I would not be able to sleep if this injury happened to Pat. So I just I feel
that's friendship right there.
Like no
Thanks,
one's
man.
talking about it. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. You wouldn't be able to write the legendary upside piece with this injury, is what I'm saying.
It's actually like I think I'm running a little behind. My typing speed's decreased.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. I
My,
honestly wish we'd asked for your positive take, because this one just makes me sad. I don't really have a lot of pushback.
My positive one is that I'm worried I spent the offseason stacking the wrong AFC Super Bowl contender, that actually just doing one Texans wide receiver in Stroud in like 25% of your drafts might be the way to win. They almost 100% have a better week 17 game, and they haven't won or proven shit. So they are much more likely to be trying to pad Stroud's numbers in the regular season than the Chiefs.
I do think the Stroud situation was the ultimate like IQ bell curve take this year. Like the mid IQers were like, oh no, he doesn't project that much better than other pocket passers. And the low IQ and high IQ are just CJ Stroud go burr. We'll find out if it was.
I was mid IQ for about.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I was mid IQ for like 3 months, and I really changed my tune. Like literally, like August 3rd, I was like, we gotta change this. It's not gonna work.
Yeah. I ended up just slightly underweight, but I have a lot of all three guys, and made a point to stack them. So I feel good.
Yeah,
I feel like I was in one of the two. I was either high IQ or low IQ.
Yeah, that's generally where you want it. Mid IQ is more derogatory than low IQ, I think, most of the time.
It is, yeah.
You're much more likely to win at fantasy football being a low IQ than a mid IQ player. Mid IQ, you are dead in fantasy football. You can't win.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. All right, we'll go to our roster construction, truth serum takes. I'll go first here. I haven't gone first yet. I've got some slides to show here. Bring the show back to its roots.
Oh, no.
But my roster construction, truth serum take is that elite tight end in a specific way that I'm going to define it is bad this year. And at the same time,
have fun staying poor, Sam.
Yeah,
and at the same time,
that one.
This is the even worse part of the take. The tight end is deep. The low end tight end ones are the nuts this year. I'll delve a little bit into Pat's player take, but let's just do a little bit of arbitrage playing of the elite tight ends this year. This is David Njoku as arbitrage, Trey McBride. Number one, I'll say that Trey McBride never played a game after half his face was burnt off and showed up in a mask and played the game like 3 days later. So he's never done that. But
true.
Everyone loves to talk about this home stretch for Trey McBride where he was allegedly so good. He was breaking fantasy. Weeks 8 on, absolutely dominated once Zach Ertz went out. How about David Njoku over that same stretch just being better than him? Had a higher targets per route run, 28% to McBride's 27%. Higher PPR points per game, 16 versus McBride's 15. People like to call Njoku like a screen merchant or whatever because they want to get the ball in his hands and let him do fun stuff after the catch. He had the same ADOT as Trey McBride, so I don't see people throwing around the screen merchant allegations against Trey McBride. I think the David Njoku upside case is not being baked into his ADP at all. And he basically profiled exactly the same.
I think it is being baked in because his quarterback has an injured shoulder and doesn't want to play football, and Joe Flacco is not there, although Jameis Winston is there. Now, if you think that Jameis is going to be playing quarterbacks in the money weeks, then I will grant this. But I am not afraid of David Njoku on a Deshaun Watson quarterback team, personally.
I just think the whole thing with like Njoku that people are missing is that like we pretend that the only reason David Njoku is good is because of Joe Flacco. Like to me,
no, it's just that he got the ball.
No, to me, the takeaway is that the reason he's good is because he has a really smart offensive coach and offensive system. And if this Deshaun Watson thing fails, I think they can bring in Jameis. And like I am a believer that if Deshaun, if his arm is just toast, they're not going to be rolling him out all year. They're going to move on.
No, you were about to learn NFL, buddy.
Yeah. Dude, I think whether it's Deshaun like says he can't play or the team says go fake an injury, you're out. They're not doing 17 games of like Deshaun Watson with no arm. But anyways, that's just a point. The second part of this take is another one that people hate. Jake Ferguson.
No, this one I'm on board with. This one I think is very good.
I thought about doing Ferguson being a good pick, which I got bullied off of early in the offseason. But we had him ahead of ADP in the rankings pretty much all season. I ended up having a hard time drafting because I just took so much Bowers in the end. But I think Ferguson might be good, guys.
Yeah, that's the thing that I don't get is that like the Dalton Kincaid upside thesis, I don't disagree with. Like, I think there's a chance he takes the jump in year 2, but Jake Ferguson, like, you look at the stats and he was either better or identical to Kincaid and like all these metrics that we love to look at for evaluating talent. And also, it's not like he doesn't have a target ceiling. Like, again, who is the person in Dallas catching passes after CD Lamb? I get that Lamb, like, theoretically caps his target ceiling because he can't be like the alpha wide receiver 1 there, but he can't be the clear number 2 when Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, like those are the wide receivers running routes against him. I don't really get why there's not more excitement for that. And again, he's in his 3rd year in the league. He's like 6 months older than Dalton Kincaid. It's not like there's some massive difference in these guys' ages. So I don't get why the upside isn't priced into his ADP like it is for Kincaid. But I'll let you guys.
Because his name is Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, he's not a first-round pick.
He's a 4th-round pick from Stanford. Now, if you segmented these numbers out in the non-Knox games, I'm going to guess Kincaid's look much, much better. Not even guess. I know they do.
They probably do, but his like stretch run was like tight end 10 last year. I think that's.
I don't think Dalton Kincaid is that good. I'll say if you're defining elite tight end as, I think Kelsey and Andrews, and to a smaller extent, McBride and Knox are the way to play tight end this year, and the other ones. In my mind, the 2 elite tight ends are dating Taylor Swift and have type 1 diabetes, and everyone else is pretending. That is my opinion.
Yeah. So here's my articulation.
That's how I played it.
How I define elite tight end, and I'm in on Kelsey and Andrews, so I won't like debate that too much. But my point is that the tight ends 7 through 12, that includes Kittle, Ingram, Ferguson, Bowers, and Joe Goddard, are going to be better both advancement rate picks and weekly ceiling picks in the playoffs from a cost adjusted basis.
Bowers, I'll give you.
Yeah. So for me, the real targets for me are, I'm not really in on Ingram or Goddard too much, to be honest, but Kittle, Ferguson, Bowers, and Njoku, I think are the way to play tight end this year. And I get historically this like tight end 7 to 12 range has not been a good bet, but that's because the elite tight ends used to be prime Travis Kelce, prime George Kittle. We don't have those guys around anymore. Like there's not that big of a gap between the Laporta, McBride, Kincaid, and the Bowers, Ferguson, and Njoku, in my opinion. And I think the 2x2s of just taking the running backs and wide receivers where like these top 6 tight ends go, and then playing chicken a little bit, taking a Ferguson, taking a Bowers, taking a Njoku, that is the best tight end strategy in 2024 over the elite. The elite tight end strategy as defined as a top 6 tight end.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing a little bit of, putting Kittle in the second group is kind of working to your advantage there. He goes right behind Pitts, but
it's a semantics thing. Like, I think elite, if you define
it was a top 7
end,
this year, I think.
Yeah. To me, I think it's a top.
There were 7 guys
11.
going in the top 65.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry. My Wi-Fi is causing issues. I'm just saying that I think the elite tight end range extends to tight end 11 this year to David Njoku and Bowers. You're telling me we're going to watch Kyle Pitts on an NFL football field in week 1 and Brock Bowers in week 1 and be like, yeah, Pitts is the guy I want. I don't know, man. I think that
Pitts,
like
to me that
could flip so quick. It could flip so quick.
I do tend to think that the ceilings on some of the early tight ends aren't as high as we're used to getting when we pay elite tight end prices. That's why part of the reason I am a little bit nervous about McBride is that, like, I don't expect him to be the number one target earner on his own team down the stretch. I don't expect Laporta to be the number one target earner on his team ever. So his ADP always felt weird to me. I took some just because I think he's really good. But like Davis, I played this mostly through Kelsey, who was my fourth highest drafted tight end, and Andrews, who's my second highest drafted tight end. So those two, and then Pitts, I actually did get overweight on. I started kind of underweight and started to get pretty nervous just about what a massive quarterback and offensive environment upgrade it is. And in some ways, I think just like moving him around the formation, like doing more interesting stuff. Like he was Desmond Ritter's deep threat. That alone is a problem. And then he was in an Arthur Smith offense, which is such a huge problem too. So Pitts, I kind of came around on as a pretty damn strong pick. But yeah, I'm kind of nervous about Kincaid in addition to McBride and, Laporta. I took all of these guys. Kincaid, I ended up at 5%. I was overweight at one point. I kind of cooled off. So I'm open to the point, but I think, like, aren't you? None of these guys make you nervous, because a few of them, like three of them specifically, I think really do have huge ceilings: Andrews, Kelsey, and Pitts.
Yeah, this for me, I struggled with how to frame this, because to me, there's guys in both of these categories that I'm targeting and fading. Like, I'm kind of fading Evan Ingram, and I'm kind of targeting Andrews, and to a lesser extent, Kelsey and McBride. So it's not as binary as tight end 1 through 6. I'm fading. Tight end 7 through 12. I'm targeting. It's not that binary. I am definitely worried about the upside of some of these elite tight ends. I have been taking all of them to some degree. I don't think I have hard fades. Even like Pitts or Kincaid, who I think I'm the strongest against on the left group, I still think I have like 3-4% of. So this isn't as strong as my Colts fade, to be clear. But yeah, man, I just think that, like, a lot of the tight end research that people look at historically, that's like, oh, you got to get one of the top 4 guys. Those are just like Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce stats. They're not like some strong. Like, I just think this position goes.
So doesn't Travis Kelce have some interest?
So don't Travis Kelce doesn't he count?
No, okay, that's fair, but this is not prime Travis Kelce. Like, let's be honest, this is not prime Travis Kelce anymore. Like, he's not the same.
He was
guy.
pretty damn good the last time we saw him. He was just the engine of the offense during a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I just think it used to be way more obvious.
You want to talk about mid IQ? Mid IQ is Travis Kelce is only going to run 69% of the routes because they're saving him for the playoffs. I fear that might be a mid IQ.
Kelsey still Kelsey is the low IQ, high IQ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They thought his season was maybe over. The night before the Lions game, there was a report that they thought they were going to put him on season-ending IR. And he still finished tight end 2.
But fade him in the 4th. That's definitely going to work.
But fade him after Michael Pittman and Sam Laporta.
Yeah. I got no strong pushback. Again, I'm taking Kelsey, so maybe I should have just presented this as like, here are my tight end targets and here are my tight end fades, but this is a cleaner way to do it. I don't think Kelsey is a bad.
I stand in opposition. I think the left side of the board is better than the right side of the board. If I could trade Sam Laporta for Brock Bowers, then I would side bet the left side of the board on the right side of the board at like minus 115 for the elite tight ends is more likely to be like, I don't know, I guess points added to the average fantasy roster or something. How Sacrilegious would know the best way to score it, but I disagree in general.
So much of the elite tight end thesis really comes down to like that these guys are much better bets for spike weeks in the playoffs than the other guys. And that's why I do think Bowers is a really good one to highlight. And Kittle. I mean, you definitely.
But the crazy wide receiver pricing.
Kittle in your batch.
The crazy wide receiver pricing makes the tight ends better because instead of taking Travis Kelce over the wide receiver 18, you're taking Travis Kelce over Terry McLaurin. Like, sure. Like, I just give me the elite tight end every time over the wide receiver 31.
I just think there's huge, even though that I agree that like McLaurin, T. Higgins, like some of these guys that go around the tight ends here, it's not like the biggest opportunity cost compared to what it was in past years, but it's still like with Njoku and Bowers, the 2x2 is like, I don't know, Khalil Shakir and Sam Laporta versus Tank Dell and David Njoku. Like, I haven't heard it articulated why Laporta, McBride, like their upside cases are so much better than Bowers and Njoku. Like, I just...
Well, Sam, the biggest
really
reason, the biggest reason is that historically, these are the most overdrafted players in fantasy. Effectively, it's like, and I could point out a reason why Kittle's not being overdrafted, why Ingram is a bit like. I can see the pro and con for each of these players, but like all of the work that like JJ and Reeves have done on tight end is we always do this. We psyop ourselves into, the tight end 9 is a pretty good pick this year. And then the tight end 9 is always like the literal worst guy in the pool.
Evan Ingram is like the poster boy for this. It's like very clearly not the number 1 option on his own team. Probably not the number 2 option on his own team by the end of the season. If Brian Thomas is any good,
probably not the number 3, honestly.
Yeah, it might. I mean, he honestly might not be. Kind of a long career where he hasn't really been special. He's been fine over a long career. That would apply to Njoku as well. I think those guys are kind of the classic, we get excited about them because they came off a season where they got targeted a lot and we assume it's going to happen again. And it doesn't. Like Njoku, I mean, Judy going there, I think is a big deal. Like he very easily could see a lower target share just because they now have a secondary. I mean, their second wide receivers like Elijah Moore. And now he might not even be over like Cedric Tillman now. So I think Judy and Amari Cooper will be the 1 and 2 targets there. And so, that has potential hurt Njoku. Plus he didn't produce with the quarterback that he'll have this season. So those two are, but Bowers is not a typical guy in this range. Bowers is very much an upside
Bowers
swing,
is like,
and the type of bet we do want to make.
The opposite. Yeah.
I just think I'll reiterate the point one more time that I think I really like the work that like JJ and Reeves do on this like market stuff. I'm just really skeptical of like the tight end market trends because it literally is like 3 or 4 players over the last decade that have been dominating tight end scoring. It's like Antonio Gates, Gronk, Travis Kelce, and last year was one of the worst seasons on record for elite tight end scoring. So I think it's just way less clear now who like the top 2 or 3 guys are. It used to be so clear that it was Gronk and Kelce as tight end 1 and tight end 2. I think this order is to get like massively shaken up next year because we just don't really know. I think you can make convincing cases for a lot of these guys in this group. So, just like the market trend of rookie tight ends never produce in fantasy, we threw that market trend into the trash heap this year. I think we're throwing out the tight end 7 to 11 group that doesn't have upside. I think we're throwing out that market trend after the season. That's my prediction. It obviously could be wrong, but that's how I see things.
I see your point, but I disagree with it. I that's fair. Brackets extremely derogatory.
It's an all-time derogatory. That's fair from me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think what
extremely
you're saying,
derogatory.
Your logic, I agree with. I think you're approaching this intelligently, and I think it's a good point. And honestly, the main reason I hope you're wrong is that my bags would be dead. My bags would be dead. Well, other than Bowers.
And I just want to say, like, I'm targeting Kelce. I'm targeting Andrews. Again, I just want to be clear, it's not like super binary how I'm doing this. To me, it's really like Laporta, Kincaid, Pitts, upside theses, even McBride a little bit, are like not that much clearer than Kittle, Njoku, Bowers, Ferguson. To me, that's the real take. Throw out fucking Evan Ingram. Throw out fading Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. That's like really how I'm pushing it. Yeah.
I guess what I would just push back on is like the market trends thing. I do think just from looking at running backs, like we see this a lot with running backs, when Gretsch talked about the dead zone years back, one of the things he was noting is like, when a guy is actually like projected for a pretty good role and we're not that excited about him, that's a sign. Like that's signal that the talent level, the upside level is not really what we want. And I do think that applies to David Njoku, to Evan Ingram, to Ferguson to a degree. We're saying, I think this guy's like the number 2, maybe the number 3, but hopefully the number 2 on his team. And he's a pretty solid player, but he's not that good. And so I think you're getting And we know from running back that's provided a ton of signals. So I guess I just push back on like kind of our ability to price these tight ends, I think fits in with a larger trend of our ability to price out other stuff too.
Makes sense. Last word on this, George Kittle is the highest exposure guy. So that's really how I'm playing with it. And maybe
famously,
that's how I can get you guys to agree with me a little bit.
Yeah, famously from this show, you butted Kittle until we took him. Yeah. Kittle's my highest exposure tight end.
I wish I had more Kittle. I didn't prioritize Kittle this year. I like a lot of the wide receivers going in the 6th now. I was taking wide receivers in the 5th, trying to stay in structure and all that stuff. And then Pitts, I was like, I'm light on Pitts, and it's scaring the hell out of me, so I'm going to take more of him. But it left me where I'm actually a little underweight on Kittle. I really hate it. I think that of all of the things you said, prioritizing George Kittle in the 6th round is I think most likely to be an absolute smash.
All right, I'll give it to you, Pat, for your roster construction truth serum take.
All right. So I thought you were going to attack 0 running back, but I'm actually going to attack it slightly in a very, very narrow way. But we are, I think, looking at as we do the final drafts, like if you're entering drafts right now, then especially in anything that's been open, that's still open, like the 555, I've been doing this in and stuff like that. So this might not apply to everything. And I would say it applies more to DraftKings than Underdog. But we've been in this environment where like people have really felt that they had to kind of get their wide receiver firepower. Like sharp drafters, like I gotta make sure I'm not getting locked out at receiver, getting your 3 wide receivers to start, which I do a ton. But like, especially now at the end of draft season, where we are starting to see some wide receivers fall, we are starting to get like Lad McConkey in the 8th round. We have wide receivers we can take at the end of the 7th now. Is it the highest upside way to play it? Like, I'm wondering if I should be sacrificed.
Definitely
like, to
no.
me,
And this was mine, Crane. You stole mine.
Well, maybe I'll leave you a little carve out here. If you're trying to just advance, I think 0 running back is still good. I don't hate it, despite what's scrolling on the screen right now. I really don't hate it. I've drafted a ton of 0 running back teams. But I did a team last night where I took Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Kelce, this is on DraftKings, Patrick Mahomes. So that's 1 wide receiver through 4 rounds. But I grabbed elite onesies and an elite running back. And then I got Calvin Ridley in the 5th. I took Fat Keenan in the 6th, played for a little of that PPR. I got Hollywood Brown in the 7th to pair with Mahomes, and I got Lad McConkey in the 8th. So that's 5 wide receivers through 8. So I'm like, I think let's get a little weird. Let's get a little weird to close out draft season. We got into the groove of, making sure you got 3 through 5, making sure you got 4 through 7, grabbing that 5th wide receiver a little earlier than everybody else maybe. But the ADPs are changing enough where I think we can I'm experimenting with like one wide receiver through 4, doing like McCaffrey and Lamar Andrews with 1 wide receiver in the 2nd. Like I'm trying to pull that stuff off because I think if you are able to like get there, that's where you end up having like these teams that are going to be like, no one was even attempting to build these teams. We were all like trying to stay on track. So your sharpest competition might not really have it. It's not really how I built all summer, but as we close out drafts, I am trying to get some of these like really weird 1 wide receiver through 4 teams in the portfolio.
So mine is kind of like that. Mine was, we just went a little overboard on the wide receiver stuff of like, so if you start your draft with 5 wide receivers, you probably don't need 8. I'm just going to guess you probably don't need 8. You probably have much greater needs at running back, at tight end, particularly if you are passing on the elite cadre of tight ends that Sam is against and I'm for. I obviously, you're talking about the rhythm thing. I mean, yeah, the 2-5-8-3. You post that screenshot in a Discord and everyone's like, oh, like, oh,
just
oh
for
my
a few
God.
drafts at the end to get weird, Sam. Not for an entire summer.
Well, mine is forward looking. My take is forward looking. I think we see a pushback in Best Ball Mania 6 and next year where running backs come back up, where it's not you're not looking at the board and through 2 rounds 20 wide receivers have gone. I think we see one of these young tight ends come up and be a top 15 pick. I don't know if it's Kincaid, I don't know if it's McBride, maybe Laporta scores 13 touchdowns. Feel pretty confident it won't be 35-year-old Travis Kelce, but no, stranger things. And so if that's my take, I built backwards on that. And it goes, okay, so how do we get there? Well, one, it would be the guy who I keep sticking on, and we maybe have never said his name in the history of ADP chasing. Travis Etienne is like the least discussed player in fantasy football.
Yeah, he is.
Who has no competition. Like, I'm sorry, if Tanks Bigsby is your competition, you have the same amount of competition that Jonathan Taylor does in that backfield, right? Like literally none. I considered my positive truth take serum. Another one I considered was Trevor Lawrence is who all of the film bros say he is, and he actually just like smashes this year and finishes like 4th in
I could totally see
MVP
that.
voting, and which brings ETN along with him. ETN scores like 15 touchdowns, catches 55 passes, is just like awesome. I think Kenneth Walker is like the one running back you're allowed to say you like if you're in the ship chasing cabal. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Kenneth Walker. I mean, obviously he's
not
awesome.
I still don't like him.
How about Rashad White just not getting benched for the 185-pound scat back from Oregon, who's never had to break a tackle before in his life, and he just gets 300 touches again? There are a lot of ways. This is kind of more of a like what keeps me up at night, like what because obviously I don't have a ton of these players, but I see, and I disagree with this comment. I actually am excited about ETN. I don't really care that ETN's results were poor last year. My base take is I still think ETN is an above average and efficient football player.
And it really depends, like the running back metrics, it depends what you look at. And it's so hard to look at running back skill in a single stat, but missed tackles forced per attempt has been one that consistently shows signal. And ETN's great in that. Like he didn't grade out awesome in some of the other stuff that people like that, but
he graded out horribly in rush yards over expected, which is
I think
my favorite of the bunch.
He's been a bit of a blind spot. Yeah, he's been a blind spot for me. Am I cutting out? It sounds like I am.
You're in and
you
out.
Are.
Okay.
It's the it's
Rashad White's been the guy that's made me nervous.
Rashad White doesn't make me nervous.
He makes me. I took him on in a 5-5-5 yesterday as kind of an anchor RB, but in the 5th round. Because in PPR, I do think like kind of Kamara-esque, where he just gets there on volume, like you're saying, like no one's able to challenge him. But yeah, I mean, I've faded Rashad White pretty hard, but that he makes me more nervous than ETN just because of the price. ETN's like moved up in price a bit, and I just think the opportunity cost is too high.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens though is it turns out the cabal was right the entire time, and it's just every team that gets to week 17 is completely identical. We get to week 17 and it's a bunch of Stroud stacks with Jalen Warren and Brock Bowers at tight. Like Brock Bowers and Jalen Warren are 65% owned in the finals because every zero running back slappy loved those guys. Like definitely possible.
Yeah. The other thing that I think
sounds great for me.
Yeah. The other thing that's funny at like wide receiver that changes so quickly when we get into the season is I think over the offseason, over the summer, there's this perceived cliff at wide receiver, at like the 80s or 90s. Like maybe it was the Bateman line last year. It's like the Jameson Williams line this year.
I would call it the DeAndre Hop. When it goes from Hopkins to Sutton, you start to go, I don't know how I feel about that.
Exactly. So that's like
I would put it earlier. It's like Jameson to me.
Jameson or Brian
line.
Thomas Jr. maybe.
Yeah, but that's kind of like the perception in the offseason. But then once the season starts, it's like 10 wide receivers. That
I was going to say the Waddle then becomes the line becomes Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like rest of them, like it's like 10 wide receivers that are putting over 15 PPR points, and then it's a really huge flat tier, and we'll find out that there's zero difference between Josh Palmer and Terry McLaurin or something along those lines, right? Like McLaurin's upside is better than Palmer's, but once like the cards are played and we see how it plays out, there's actually going to be a really flat tier of wide receivers that starts much earlier than like the 8th round. It's like the 3rd or 4th round. Like last year, this happened with T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle. There was no difference between them and Jacoby Myers, who you got in like the 10th round. Like not saying like process wise, it was bad to take those guys early, but that's just kind of how it played out once the cards were down. So that's something where I think like there's something to your point, Pat, where like, I think the correction on 0 RB, I think it's actually probably right that in the first 2 or 3 rounds, we're smart to be really wide receiver heavy. But I think maybe where we get it wrong is like really undervaluing the tight ends, quarterbacks, and running backs in rounds like 4 through 10. And we shouldn't be drafting Terry McLaurin like in the 5th round. You know, guys like that, I think, are maybe the ones that like are most overpriced relative to other positions.
Well, one of the things, to your point about like the Bateman line, one of your things that I really do struggle with in fantasy, and I feel like I probably didn't do it all that well this year either, is like there's certain players that you find yourself taking because the market is sort of boxing you into those players. This was like Bateman. This I think would, Bateman and Burks I liked last year, but they were, I was like, and I got to take these guys because if I don't, the wide receivers dry up. I was wrong about them, but I was also wrong about when the wide receivers dried up. We had Nico Collins sitting there after those guys. So the wide receiver didn't dry up at all.
I mean, the degree to which we're going to be wrong is insane.
Yeah. This year, I think if I had to kind of say where is that part of the draft, I think it's probably like the 5th round where I was taking like early 5th round Keenan Allen. You had Jaden Daniels, or not Jaden Reed going there. Calvin Ridley was going in the 5th for a lot of the summer, which I wasn't really in on that one. But like I took a ton of Xavier Worthy in the 5th, which I feel fine about. But in part, I did it because it's like, oh, I got to stay ahead at wide receiver. I can't fall behind. And what if what if basically that was impossible? What if all those wide receivers, those 5th round wide receivers like McLaurin are just like overpriced? And the move was to pivot, get an elite quarterback, which I have plenty of, and I've got the tight ends, so I mixed it up. I think I did a better job of like not letting the market just box me into that, but I certainly have a fair amount of McLaurin and some Pickens and Kirk and Keenan Allen and all those guys that we're not like super excited about as potential breakouts in the 5th round. They're just like helping us fill weeks at wide receiver. But like, am I playing for floor? Is that me just playing for floor too much instead of like, well, let me grab guys who I think can break out at whatever other position and be like huge league winners. And then I can like backfill with Tyler Lockett and Rashid Shaheed and like do that. I don't have probably enough of those builds.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, what if you just say starting in round 6, you just took your favorite targets at like you just pulled up Jalen Warren to the 6th, Raheem Mostert to the 7th, whoever. I'm making up players, but what if you just said, fuck it, I'm pulling up my favorite running back targets for this range. I don't care that they go 20 spots later in ADP. I want
just to get them on the same roster.
Yeah, I want 3 of them instead of just 1 of them or something like that. I think that's interesting. And maybe that's how ADP corrects next year, that we'll see a lot more running backs go from like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Still really wide receiver heavy in the first couple rounds, but like more of a pull up of the running backs after that. I think it's possible things shake out that way.
I think we get the quarterbacks higher next year. I think Mahomes goes higher. I think Allen goes higher. I think Hurts goes higher. If we potentially get Richardson going higher, Richardson will go much higher or much lower. And yeah, I think that's, to me, I mean, I actually think, I know Pete's Truth Serum take was that elite quarterback isn't a good move, but I think at these prices, it's pretty damn interesting. And I don't know that we get the opportunity to take them again at like, 5th round prices, 4th round prices. So I've been trying, that's one way. Like when I get weird, it's often for a stack. It's often for like, I'm trying to get more Mahomes, Kelsey. I'm trying to get as much Lamar Andrews as I can this year. So if I come out of the first 4 rounds with like 1 or even 2 wide receivers, I'd like to have 3, but if it's 1, it's almost always because I did like an Allen Kincaid would be another one around 4 or 5, where I'm light on wide receiver. I have 2 through 5, but I get the elite quarterback with the elite tight end. That to me is like that is the sort of the opposite of what I'm talking about, where the market's making me do something. That's me going, what is the market giving me this year that it usually doesn't? And it's an elite quarterback stacked with his number one weapon, who is a tight end. And in all 3 cases, you have that upside. And if you have to get a little weird at wide receiver to make it happen, I think we should definitely try it out at least.
Well, we're all going to end up being running back slappies next year anyways, because Ashton Jeanty is going to be a second-round pick to some offense we really like, and we're going to make him a second-round pick in fantasy. Maybe a first-round pick, honestly.
Dude, we need better running back classes.
This running back class coming out is a great one.
We think about how many, the Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, all those, that group, like Dalvin Cook's still signing contracts. That group is hanging around. It's we just have not had that much talent. We've had some really high end talents enter the league, but the depth at running back, I think is worse. The talent depth at running back in the NFL, I think is worse than it has been in years past. And that's one reason we're having trouble drafting these guys.
Yeah.
Or there's I'm excited about Jonathan Brooks, but he's coming off a torn ACL. I'm excited about Jalen Warren, but he's in a committee. It's tough to make the talent-based cases for. I just don't think it goes as deep. So I guess I would I'm less worried about the running back part of this when I'm taking wide receivers early than actually the onesie part of it. Because I think the running back player pool isn't as good as it was 3 years ago or whenever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, it's about the game is going to change. There are 5 NFL starters, 5 guys who I think are all better than Ken Walker are coming in next year, and probably 2 wide receivers who are Neighbors level.
Damn.
Maybe three, honestly.
McMillan, that's the guy everyone's hyping up now. Tatoria McMillan, I don't know how to pronounce his
and
first name,
Burden. McMillan got all the headlines because he just had a billion touchdowns, but Burden might be better than him.
Yeah.
Who's the Arizona State guy?
That's McMillan.
McMillan.
Okay.
Yeah. We also got robbed at running back over the past 5 years. I think it just ran bad. ETN had the Liz Frank injury, Dobbins, Akers, Achilles injuries, Javonte, multi-ligament knee tear.
That's
even
so
Brees, true. Brees, who was a hit, also tore up his knee. Jonathan Brooks, best prospect in this class, tore up his knee. I think it's been a combination of some structural things where running backs, top athletes, are probably playing running back a little bit less than they used to because of the money and everything, but also that we've just gotten unlucky with injuries, to be honest.
And Braylon Allen went to the wrong team. Braylon Allen is a Cowboy. Braylon Allen is a 4th-round pick to the Cowboys if they didn't trade that pick for Trey Lance. Where would we be taking Braylon Allen in a Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, Braylon Allen backfield right now?
This is going to seem like a bit.
Pick?
He'd be a 9th-round pick.
Well, higher.
Really?
Higher.
No,
Read the guy who out-carried Rico Dowdle at South Carolina is a regional sales manager for Coca-Cola, dude, and he's a 9th-round pick. We could push Braylon Allen up higher. All right, I promise you, we could push Braylon Allen up higher.
It's funny you say that because
you're right. You are correct. He would go higher.
When I was going through this exercise and getting all the closing line value takes, and I just caught some snippets of what we said throughout the offseason. But I had this Rico Dowdle take in February or March, and I was like, look, if the Cowboys don't draft running back and don't sign anyone at running back, Rico Dowdle is going to go in the 80s. And that just never happened. No one ever cared. No one ever cared that the Cowboys didn't add anything.
I cared.
They literally just never cared.
I drafted a ton of Rico Dowdle. It was just very difficult to get people excited about him. He's my 4th highest drafted player on Underdog.
Yeah, he's
Warren,
top 5 for me
Colt,
too.
Dowdle.
Yeah.
It's actually it's a Pirine thing too. Dowdle should have went up even higher when Pirine avoided going there, in my opinion. Pirine is much more of an impactful guy for fantasy than Dalvin Cook.
Oh yeah, not even close.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think people often underestimate the importance of practice, and having Dalvin Cook out there on the field, playing scout team running back for the defense is really going to help Dallas's defense, which is honestly underrated based on the Dalvin Cook signing.
I thought you had an earnest take there, Grant. You almost got me really fired up.
I do. Dalvin Cook is washed. Dalvin Cook is so washed. He is, I think honestly, Royce Freeman would have been a bigger concern to Rico Dowdle than Dalvin Cook.
Listening to Sean,
I mean
earnestly, I agree with you. Royce Freeman was not that bad when he played last year.
He wasn't that bad last year.
Listening to Sean earnestly tell Ben Gretch to put Dalvin Cook in the queue on an episode of Stealing Bananas, I was like, I don't even know what I'm listening to right now. This feels, I feel betrayed.
I was so confused.
Well, he put Royce Freeman in the queue of our main event.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The thing that you have to give to Sean is predicting his opinions on things is like some analysts I can kind of predict what they're going to do, what they're going to say. With Sean,
he zigged.
Where did that come from? I have no idea. It's incredible. I love that he
zigs. Yeah,
like he was out on Pollard last year. I would have bet $100. He was like, oh, love Pollard. And he was like, I don't know. And
he's right.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll do it for
hopefully he's wrong about that.
Yeah, he's wrong. He's wrong about that. Please, Sean, just be wrong about that. Tell us what's all about.
Give us this one.
Yeah. Davis, your truth serum take, to be clear, was you're going along with Crane, so we're done on the roster construction.
My truth serum was basically just what if the Slappies have gone too far?
Yeah. Well, they have, obviously.
I think it would be very funny if zero running back next year is like, yeah, it's a great advance rate tactic, but does it have, is it really the high upside? Yeah, it does have the juice. It's sort of like the normie. Like, sure, if you're a normie, you can use zero running back. But really
robust RB or hyper fragile. I could see Herzig's hyper fragile thing coming back into vogue again. Like you start 4 running backs and then don't take any again for the rest of the draft.
No, I don't think, unless the ADP environment changes a lot, I don't think that version of it's gonna ever come back in vogue again, unless there's a lot more running backs going early and you can get receivers later. But I do think like some iteration of hyper fragile could be like really in vogue next year. It's like one running back early and then another in the 5th and another in the 7th and another in the 8th and you stop.
The only strategy I know that will never catch on is the hit him with the gritty triple elite quarterback. That I feel 100% confident will never catch on. You could tell me almost anything. I feel like the story of well, it's
cool when you look at your roster. It's kind of
what if they ping pong? What if they ping pong weeks is the theory. What would you guys say was the
and then what else? Like you spent 3 of your top 5 picks at quarterback, man.
It's the tweet format of like step 1 draft 3 elite quarterbacks, and then step 2 ... question mark, step 3 profit. You don't really profit. In between. It kind of just is a vibes based. Yeah. I do think there's something in your point, Crane. I realize I tried to end the show and now we're back talking about it. I do think there is something to like, you've made this point before, so I don't want to pass it off as my own take, but there's something to like the anchor running back, or maybe even like bimodal running back, like, I don't know, A-Chain, Bijan start, something like that. I think that is kind of tricky to advance, but if you hit on the right combination of wide receivers, the upside on those teams should crush like the zero RB upside teams, like should demolish it. So there's something to that.
It depends on what running back hits we get, but it could very well demolish it.
It could demolish it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You probably need something like this year's Nico Collins, like a wide receiver in the 8th, 9th, or 10th that smashes 2 or something.
DeAndre Hopkins catches 11 touchdowns. That could what one outlier performance that you don't even have to squint to see it. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Would shake it up the most. Like Nico Collins was a huge one from last year. A-Chain is a big one from last year. I do think one of those wide receivers in the Addison, Sutton, Lockett. Like what if I told you Romeo Doubs just catches 12 touchdowns? Like actually he does just run 87% of the routes and catches 12 touchdowns. I'd be like, well, Thanks. It was fun playing, but I will be back next year for some Ashton Jeanty teams.
Yeah, I think Josh Palmer has some like sneaky upside to be that. Like you can squint at Josh Palmer and see the Nico Collins thing a little.
No, I can't really. But
This
good for you.
Take sponsored by UTR.
No, he's big underdog now.
Yeah, I'm playing both sides, whatever's more convenient. A huge shout out though to Leone on the closing line value game. The Josh Palmer thing, that was all him. I picked him week 1, and I think Leone has Josh Palmer as like his wide receiver 10 or something in the spreadsheets because their rank on him is just it's so high. I don't know how that happened, but I'm happy for it. All right, third attempt to wrap up the show. We have an exciting announcement. ADP chasing will be continuing during the regular season this year. We will be doing shows, I think, at 11:45 a.m. on Mondays. So it will be a first look show, much like the Takecast, much like the
Swolecast.
Swolecast, sorry. First look show. I think we'll be going over resurrection ADPs. But it depends on what contests are out. We'll adjust
I think
the
it's
show.
mostly just going to be bag defending. If I could project it in the
mostly
future,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
mostly
vibes.
It's vibes. Don't promise any actionable information. We're going to be vibing out. It's on Monday,
victory
not even all the
lapping
games
and
they've
bag
played.
defending. Yeah.
It's victory lapping and bag defending for 1 hour every Monday.
It's basically going to be like Jalen Ward didn't get there this week, but he definitely could have if you look at it in a certain point of view.
He's gonna.
Yeah.
We're playing for the second half of the season.
The amount of like bad faith player comparisons I'm going to be able to do with small sample data is going to be.
Oh, it's going to be 3 weeks in. T. Higgins isn't going to have a touchdown yet, and like Jacoby Myers is going to have 4. Over. It's over for T. Higgins, buddy.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see which player I'm gonna just put Jover on in week 2 or week 3 this year. It worked well with JSN last year. That could have bit me in the ass. It was close to. It didn't quite. But I'll
Sam,
be
people forget. I was live on Ship Chasing as JSN. I was literally talking about how shitty JSN is as he caught a 60-yard bomb touchdown that was called back for the slappiest of slappy. Like his like
it was a great call. It was a great call.
His thumb landed out of bounds, but I was like almost decimated live on air by Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'll never forget it because I was like, this will be the most immediately I've ever been wrong about something, and I was so glad it got called back.
Be honest.
I was in the chat.
Be honest. Was that a worse feeling? Was that a worse feeling than when you get sniped on Xavier Worthy? Yeah.
No. It has not happened to me since that main event. In every high stakes draft since then, I've just told my co-manager, like, look, this is basically non-negotiable. Like, we can manage this team together, but one of our picks is preordained. Like Jacob and I did a primetime on Saturday, and I think it was like pick 63, and he was like, go ahead, like just do it. And I was like, all right.
We're not going to know until about round 6 if we're actually managing this team together or if you just bought yourself a main event.
Hard to say.
All right. Well, anyways, guys, get excited for victory lapping and bag defending 11:45 a.m. Eastern every Monday. I'm really excited for the show.
We should change that to the name of the show. It should be victory lapping and bag defending on Ship Chasing.
really rolls off the tongue.
Bias chasing.
Yeah.
Bias chasing. Bias chasing.
Bias chasing.
Chasing.
Yeah, bias chasing.
Yeah.
Misinformation chasing.
Bias chasing kind of has there's something there.
Bias chasing could work. I mean, that sounds like a good in-season show. Bias chasing. I don't want to have to chase ADP in season, so let's just chase bias. That's what we're promising.
Yeah, let's be honest. The premise of the ADP chasing show is really falling off the rails.
I was going to say it's very loose. It's very loose. Yeah,
it's very loose.
It's very loose. But anyways, earnest take for me. I've had a really fun time doing the show with you guys this season and last season. Thanks a lot to all the listeners who've brought us here. I mean, yeah, this show, just being honest, I think was a lot more successful than I could have imagined when we started this a year and a half ago.
It is the best ball show on the internet. Let's just be real. It is the best ball show. Even people who don't like us watch it because it's good.
It's the vibes. The vibes are immaculate. The ADP chase.
Whether
are very
you're
good.
hate watching it or you're watching it because you like our takes, we don't care. You know, either works.
Or sometimes a little bit of both.
A little of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah. If you don't hate me at least a little bit after watching the show, I don't really know what to tell you. You clearly missed the entire premise of the show. Yeah.
T. Higgins' representation has been watching this, just compiling a class action lawsuit.
All right, guys. Pat, Davis, anything to tease that you guys have coming up in season, or we get out of here?
I'm just kind of giving myself the grace to not fully settle on what my in-season schedule is going to be like until next week. So whatever happens this week is a bonus.
Cool.
Crane. I went the opposite way. I decided to go ahead and do it. Last year, I didn't do a week one walkthrough, and I felt like, I did move across the country, so that was a little bit of a, an excuse, but felt like I really needed to come back and get that done this year. So I am going to have a walkthrough out. It's going to post Thursday morning. Normally it will post Friday mornings, but I'm heading to Vegas on Thursday morning, so getting it done a day early. We also have Stephanie Miller's waiver wire column, the first iteration of which just posted to the site today. So she's looking at the waiver wire, for the early runs for your high stakes leagues and stuff. And then she's going to be posting that every week going forward. Matt Irby is also joining the team this year. He's a crazy good writer. Has done a lot of great work for RotoViz, and he's going to be previewing the Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night games. So we're going to have that coming out as two separate articles. The Thursday one obviously posted first, and then the Sunday, Monday night will come out on Saturday mornings. We're also going to be doing in-season positional redraft rankings at Legendary Upside this year, adding that to the mix. So those will publish, I think, Wednesday, update Friday, update Sunday. So really ramping up the content that we have on the site this year. Pretty excited about that. We'll also obviously have playoff best ball stuff once we get to that time of the year. Foolishly left at $10 a month still. So if you guys want to get your in-season content, legendaryupside.com. Also, the Legendary Running Back Scenarios article, if you have not had a chance to check that out, you can go ahead and do that. That's live on the site. And I took the paywall off, so everyone can check that out.
That's awesome. And yeah, I can personally vouch for Steph's waiver article last year. That was awesome. That's something I always checked out when I was comparing notes with my Established to Run waivers article. She does a great job. Gets really deep into the pickups there. Quickly, my in-season schedule. I'm no longer doing the waiver bitch roll at ETR. That's been handed off to Daigle. Thank you, Daigle.
God, Daigle is doing waivers and then doing half of Silva's job. My God.
So good luck with that, Daigle. Now he'll do an awesome job. Definitely check that out over there. I'm doing a different article for ETR this season. The preliminary title is Breakout or Fake Out. It's basically looking at the breakout performances from the past week that were unexpected, going deep into both the film and the analytics, really watching all the plays of a breakout game and seeing if that's repeatable. It's sort of meant to be for both DFS and for your redraft leagues. If you want to trade away a player, trade for a player, I think the deep analysis at the player level will be really helpful for that. And then I'll also be doing the Underdog Waivers show every Monday with Hayden over on the Underdog channel, so you can check out my work there. But anyways, guys, let's get out of here.
All right, well, if you guys are going to give the whole spiel, then I will do. I do know that I'm doing this. Waivers every Monday, then the Waiver Wire podcast every Monday. If you don't like to read, you just want to listen to it.
That's a good
then
one.
Then I'll have in-season rankings on Wednesday. So your rest of the season rankings, then weekly rankings on Thursday, then Friday will be the DFS thing. It's not going to be like a 9,000 word breakthrough. It's just going to be like, this is how I'm approaching the slate. This is how I'm playing it. And then I will have Battle Royale streams on Tuesdays. I am doing the sports betting show with Reeves on Fridays, and then the unabated Pick'em show Friday afternoons. And then Jacob and I are running back our DFS podcast from last year on Thursday mornings, but it'll be on YouTube. So there'll be, and that's everything that I know is happening. The thing is, I got to add something.
Well, no, then you and I are doing. We're doing DFS MVP as well.
DFS on Friday afternoons. Yeah.
Friday.
So that's everything I know is happening. The thing is I got a hole on Wednesday afternoon and on Monday afternoon that I am trying to fill right now.
Yeah. I got shameless plug too. I have an opening for probably one more thing. Anyone wants to pay me to do something? I'm available. Free agent. So hit me up. With that, we'll be back next Monday for victory lapping and bag defending. See you guys then.